Hey guys, welcome back to Walk and Study. Today is a very simple lesson. Today's lesson is for English learners who are just starting and who want to learn some of the basics. This lesson is for students at the A1 level. As we work through this lesson, we will be walking through the campus of an American university called the University of Denver. Today we will be going over one of the simplest and most important verb tenses in English, the present simple tense. Before we get into when to use this verb, let's go over the main ways this verb tense changes with different subjects, which are also known as the verb forms or verb conjugations. That sentence might have sounded hard, but I promise that it's actually easy. Let's use the verb walk as an example. As we can see in the graphic, only he, she, it, also known as third person singular, changes the verb. In this instance, we add an S to the end to make walks. With some verbs, you will have to add an ES to the end of the verb. For instance, in the sentence, she touches the dog, the verb touch becomes touches with an ES. Another thing to remember is that some verbs need IES at the end when using he, she, it. When the verb ends in a consonant, so any letter that is not a vowel, plus a Y, then we have to add IES to the end of the verb. We can use the verb fly as an example. When he, she, it is the subject of the sentence, the verb fly becomes flies. We remove the Y from the end of fly and add an IES. For example, John flies the airplane, or my bird flies in the sky. Another example is the verb cry. Again, we remove the Y when the subject is he, she, it, and we add an IES to the end. So we could say, the little baby cries. Now let's talk about when we use this tense. We use present simple tense in two main ways. First, we use present simple when an action is happening now. For example, we could say, the man walks his dog. In this sentence, walk is the verb and the present simple form is walks. Since the man is walking his dog right now, we use the present simple tense. But as you saw in the graphic, the verb walk changes when the subject of the sentence changes. So if the subject of the sentence was I, the sentence is, I walk my dog. If the subject of the sentence was she, the sentence becomes, she walks her dog. Another example might be, the boy plays basketball. In this sentence, the verb play becomes plays. We could also say, the girl practices karate. In the sentence, the verb practice becomes practices. The second main way we use present simple is when the action happens regularly. For example, we could say, the man walks his dog every morning. So the man walks his dog every day at the same time. Since the action is happening regularly, in this case every morning, we use present simple tense. We could also say, I make coffee every morning before I walk my dog. We could also say, on Saturdays, she makes cupcakes. In each of these examples, the person does the action regularly rather than just once. In the first sentence and second sentence, the action happens every morning. In the third sentence, the action happens every Saturday. All right, let's practice. Pause the video and write down 5 sentences in present simple with 5 different verbs and 5 different subjects in the comments section. For the first 25 comments, I will read through your sentences and correct any problems for you. Good luck. I look forward to reading your sentences. Okay, the next thing we will go over is how to make questions in present simple. To make questions in the present simple tense, we use the question words do and does somewhere in the question. For example, we could ask, do you like dogs? In this sentence, like is the verb and it's in present simple tense. The answer to this question might be, yes, I like dogs, but my sister does not like dogs. In this answer, we use like twice in the present simple tense. You'll also notice that the first part of the sentence is positive, I like dogs, and the second part of the sentence is negative, my sister does not like dogs. If we want to create a negative sentence in present simple, we have to add do not or does not before the verb. The short form of do not is don't, and the short form of does not is doesn't. By the way, when speaking, Americans almost always use the short form. Another example question might be, where do you live? Even though our main question word is where, we also have do right after. When asking questions in present simple, we always need to remember to include do or does in the question. We can't say where they live. We have to say where do they live? Another example might be, where does your brother live? In this question, do has changed to does because the subject of the sentence has changed to your brother. We could also ask, does your brother live in Germany? If the answer is negative, then we can say, no, my brother does not, or doesn't, live in Germany. Another example might be, do you play a musical instrument? We could also ask, how do you go to school? An answer to this question might be, I go to school with my car. All right, practice time again. I want you to pause the video and write down 5 questions in present simple and then answer those questions with complete sentences in the comments section. Like before, I'll read and correct the first 25 comments. Good luck. All right, well done everyone. I hope you added some sentences to the comment section. Okay, now we're going to talk about the verb to be in present simple. To be is a special verb that has special or irregular verb forms. As you can see in the graphic, to be takes different forms than other verbs in present simple tense. For example, we could say, I am a doctor. Since the subject is I, the verb to be becomes am. We could also say, you are Turkish. Since the subject is you, the verb to be becomes are. We could also say, she is very smart. Since the subject is she, the verb to be becomes is. As with other verbs in present simple, Americans will often use the short form of the to be verb. To use the same sentences as examples, we could say, I'm a doctor, you're Turkish, she's very smart. If we want to make negative sentences, all we have to do is add the word not after the to be verb. For example, we would say, I am not sad right now. We could also say, you are not a movie star. Or we could say, she is not here. Using the short form in negative sentences is just as easy as using it in positive sentences because we shorten the verbs in the same way. For example, our three sentences from before become, I'm not sad right now, you're not a movie star, she's not here. Okay, let's talk about another special or irregular verb in English, the verb to have. As you can see in the graphic, the verb to have has two different forms in present simple. For example, we could say, I have a dog. Since the subject is I, the verb form is have. We could also say, they have a large house. Since the subject is they, the verb form is also have. We could also say, she has 2 little brothers. Since the subject is she, the verb form is has. If we want to make negative sentences with to have as our main verb, it's a little bit more complicated than our previous examples. To make negative sentences, we have to use the verb do alongside our verb have. In practice, and as you can see in the graphic, that means the do verb is the verb that changes depending on the subject, and the have verb remains the same. So we could say, I do not have a Lamborghini. Since the subject is I, we say, do not have. We could also say, they do not have tickets to the football game. Since the subject is they, we say, do not have. Another example might be, she does not have a cat. Since the subject is she, we say, does not have. But don't forget, when speaking, Americans almost always use the short form. This means our 3 example sentences would become, I don't have a Lamborghini, they don't have tickets to the football game, she doesn't have a cat. All right, practice time again. I want you to pause the video and write down 5 sentences in present simple using the verb to be, and 5 sentences in present simple using the verb to have. Like before, I'll read and correct the sentences in the first 25 comments. Good luck. Okay, I hope you all added some sentences to the comments, because I look forward to reading what everyone came up with. With that, guys and gals, we've gone over present simple tense in English. This is a basic tense, but a very important tense. I hope this lesson was helpful to you all. As always, subscribe below, give us a like if you found the video helpful, and let us know in the comments section what else you'd like to learn about or see in our next Walk and Study lesson. Thanks, guys. Take care.